Hey, Facebook. I hope you're all well and safe and warm somewhere. And I wish a happy birthday to my daughter, Abby. Um, I'm obviously not coming to you from my car because I am spending less time again in my car and more time in my office here as I've switched almost all of my meetings from in-person meetings to Zoom meetings, which is sad, but a reality and a short-term solution. So we will move through this. It is a period for the legislature in particular of overlapping terms. So the new term doesn't begin until January when we are sworn in. So we are still technically in, I'm still technically in my first term, which means I'm continuing. One of my committees in particular, appropriations, continues to meet throughout the year. And we had a big meeting today, which I'll cover a little bit of in a minute or two. But of course, my schedule is filling up with new things, even though we haven't been sworn in yet, for a variety of reasons, relating in particular to the moment we're in and how business is going to be different this year. So to remind you, I will chair the Public Safety Committee. I will serve on the Environment Committee again, and I will join the Energy and Technology Committee. And so for public safety, I'm having a lot of reaching out a lot to a lot of local people whose work is most keenly affected by the work of the Public Safety Committee to make sure I'm really versed in local perspectives before I enter the slipstream of the statewide issues. And there are some big issues before that committee this year, which are important for a whole host of reasons, but they have big financial implications for the state. So I'll be talking about that more in future Facebook lives. But so I'm having a lot of those meetings, but also a series of meetings with committee chairs about how it is that we're going to conduct the business of the state in this situation where there is a significant light at the end of the tunnel as we hear, good news about vaccines, which we expect to start to be administered to that first wave of healthcare workers, nursing home residents, and first responders this month. But that we are not in the clear yet, and we have some serious months ahead of us to get through. And but the legislature will return to session, and we need to conduct business, and that means largely we're going to have to do it on Zoom for the first few months or other online platforms. And there are some parts of that actually make it easier for the public to participate because you don't have to come to Hartford and sit around for many hours while you wait to get your turn to testify. On the other hand, it's an obvious challenge for people who don't have access to the internet, and we have to address that and make sure that they have other ways to participate. But it also constrains how we do business. So there are a lot of layers to how we will probably do significantly less business this year. Or maybe, arguably, what we might do is focus on the things that are actually realistic, because we can't, cover as many bills in a Zoom hearing as you might in a hearing where people are physically present in a room. We also have significant budgetary constraints, which will act as another filtration layer. And finally, our government is, we are the land of steady habits, and our government is very particularly the bill drafting aspect of our government, which is done with the help of a nonpartisan group in the legislature, is very paper driven and very, it requires signatures and actual physical copies of bills. And partly that's for security reasons. And the states that have moved to a more digital format for that have to invest significantly in those safety and security for the online part of that. And we are just not there. So that means that in this moment of physical distancing and all kinds of safety measures, it is much harder for them to move that volume of legislation through. And so that will also be a significant filtration device on the number of things that we look at. So we're having a lot of meetings about how it is that we're going to do exactly that. But because some committees, including two committees that I sit on, have been conducting hearings online for several months, I think we've learned a lot, and we will be able to do that. Stay tuned on how and when, but we will. So because of the overlap, we're all engaging in meetings that relate to the new term, but I'm also, particularly on appropriations, sitting on appropriations meetings, which continue. And today we had a joint meeting of the Appropriations and Finance Committees where we got a presentation from the governor and the Office of Fiscal Analysis on the fiscal accountability reports, which are sort of today's budget and economic projections. And like everything else in the news these days, it contains good news and bad. The bad we sort of expected because we knew the hit to the economy, but it turns out not in many ways not to have been as big a hit as we feared. So for example, for the fiscal year that just ended this past summer, fiscal year 20, at one point we projected $1 billion deficit this year. And in fact, we ended with a small surplus. Some of that's due to timing issues, but by any measure, it's much better than we projected, which is great. Now, for the next 2 fiscal years, we will face deficits. But the good news is that those deficits now are within the confines of our rainy day fund. So in theory, we could cover those 2 budgetary holes with the rainy day fund. Now, there are all kinds of reasons why we might not want to use up the entire rainy day fund to do that, and we would have to do that. So we have a lot of still difficult fiscal and budgetary issues ahead of us, but not as bad as we expected. That said, we still know that certain sectors of our economy in particular are hit hard, and that's the service industry most broadly, and particularly our restaurants, which are a huge important part of our economy, a part of our social fabric, employ a lot of people in our communities, and they are hurting. And so the governor made some good comments in the last day or so about help being on the way. So I look forward to hearing more about that. But we all also, in our house, we're trying to order takeout as much as possible and do what we can and tip when we do to make sure we support these institutions, which have also supported us. And I know a lot of local restaurants around here have done a lot for food insecurity as well. So they are important to us for a whole host of reasons. And I hope you'll find a way to support them too as you make your holiday plans. So have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.